Good morning. Good morning and welcome to Lincoln Ware Live. I'm attorney Lisa K. Crawford, guest host this morning for Lincoln Ware, and we have an exciting show for you today. Our first guest is Sister Joan Crawford. And I'm sorry, Joan Leonard. I messed that up already. This is live TV, Sister Joan Leonard, and we're talking about ageism. And a very interesting topic because a lot of people are afraid of getting old, quite frankly. So we're going to talk about all the issues that come with that and mental stimulation and how to keep the brain alive and functioning through the years of getting old. And then our second guest is Noel M. Morgan. He's with the Legal Aid Society, and what we're talking about today is landlord tenant issues. So get ready for that because there are a lot of issues out there dealing with landlord tenant. People have rats, roaches, bed bugs, those kind of issues, faulty plumbing, and just things that landlords don't do. And then there's some issues with tenants that landlords have. So hopefully you have questions on these topics, and so stay tuned for that. This is WBQC, Channel 38, and we're going to turn our attention to our first guest, which is Sister Joan Leonard. Okay, you know, Joan Crawford. I don't know where I got that from, but anyway, welcome to the show, Sister Joan.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right, so you wrote a book, and it's called Cutting to the Root of Ageism.
That's right.
That's right. And so we're talking about basically some of the issues pertaining to getting old. And the first thing I'd like for you to do is tell, what is ageism? What is that?
Well, it's an attitude, an offensive attitude in my mind, that much of the population has with regard to people, especially over 70. Unfortunately, the popular belief is often that once you're over 70, you're mentally not quite competent, and sometimes psychologically not competent, and so you are dismissed as an ineffectual part of society, and that is outrageous.
So basically, we're talking about something offensive when you're talking about ageism.
That's right.
It's a certain attitude that
That's
people
correct.
have, and we talked a little bit earlier. You said it fits in with all the other isms, sexism and any other kind of ism that you can think of.
That's correct.
But generally, people, don't you find that generally through your research that people just are fearful of aging?
I think that's often true, and that's one of the reasons that I wrote this book. And the subtitle is The Effect of Developing 3 Gifts. And my belief is that if we develop the gifts of highly developed brains, the desire to contact a higher being, and supporting our own special uniqueness, that if we do that, then society will see us as vibrant, exciting people, continuing to be such until we die.
And that's really good because I think what people need to realize is that you don't have to be down and blue about getting older. I mean, life begins at 90 in some cases. So that's what we're going to talk more about. And so get your calls lined up. Don't be afraid of getting old. Let's talk about some of these issues, how to stay mentally stimulated, if you will. We're going to take a quick break. This is WBQC-TV, Lincoln Ware Live, and I'm your guest host, attorney Lisa K. Crawford. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Lincoln Ware Live. I'm attorney Lisa K. Crawford, and I'm the guest host today. And my guest is Sister Joan, and we're talking about ageism and just how to stay young in the mind. And that's what we're all striving for. And welcome back to the show, Sister Joan. You also have with you the Dean of Chatfield College. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bob Peiffer.
Good morning, Lisa.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Chatfield College, where is that?
In Brown County, Ohio, but we also have a campus near Findlay Market.
Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit more, find out more about the college and what it offers in a little bit, but getting back to this topic, Sister Joan, Before the break, you're saying by the time we turn 70, we're dismissed as basically being irrelevant, our brains don't work, we're too frail to do anything. And, you know, that's a problem because it's a perception issue with people getting older. And by the way, if anybody has any questions on the topic or you want to talk about this, be sure to give us a call this morning at 651-3838, or you can dial 381-3838. But let's get to your research on mental stimulation, because you're saying that's the way that we avoid this perception issue and the whole getting old thing, right?
That's correct. I think if enough people get excited about learning and realize that it can make a difference in the way you age, if they get excited when they're young about learning. Can I go into the specifics of what happens in the brain?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'd love to know that.
All right. What happens in the brain, and this is comparatively new. When I was in school, we didn't know this. But Marion Diamond, Dr. Marion Diamond from UCLA, did some groundbreaking research in the early 80s where she showed that rats that were involved in an enriched environment, and that meant in the lab with mazes in their cages and toys and a number of rats together, that they absolutely changed the symmetry of their brains. And new dendrites, those little nerve cells in the brain, new dendrites sprouted the more experience they had, and little spines on the dendrites grew. And so we had these additional ways to communicate within the brain of the rat. And so the more dendrites and spines there are, the faster a person learns, the longer they remember. And so she showed that the other control groups who did not have that stimulation, their dendrites shriveled up just like a dried leaf.
Now, you said dendrites, not dentures.
That's correct.
Okay, well,
no,
now,
we don't have dentures.
all right, no. So the dendrites are the little, they're like the little nerve cells that, what do they create the stimulation for, what, youthfulness?
Or communication.
Okay.
See, our problem with memory is that there are not enough dendrites and spines left, like this little guy over here in the cage, that his little dendrites shriveled up. So he couldn't remember, even before he died, he couldn't remember things. But the more we have in our brains and the more that rat in the lab has, the faster he's going to learn and the longer he's going to remember.
So if I got this right, it sounds like we need to keep exercising the brain. We need to keep learning. We need to keep doing stuff and staying active.
That's correct.
And then those dendrites, no matter how old we are, will sprout. Oh,
exactly.
And that's the key to staying young?
That's correct. Now, I'm 78, and if
you look great for 78, by the way. I mean, and you know, and that could be offensive too, and I apologize if it is, because you know, it's all about how people perceive things.
That's right.
Right.
Now, but I'm saying that because, you know, from my own personal experience, as I was doing the research, I thought, I'm a living example of what this is saying, because I get excited about learning. But if I were, you know, if I gave in to feeling too tired on a given day to do anything mentally stimulating, I say, whoa, I've got to either put Mozart on the record player so that, by the way, music does help the brain.
Okay.
And get a new book.
So keep listening to music.
That's right, that's right. So you can just give in to the situation of what is expected of you by society. That's what ageism is. If we just say, well, I'm not supposed to have to do anything when I'm old, then you will contribute to the attitude that is prevalent throughout the United States and other parts of the world that says old people don't amount to much. They don't do anything,
and that's what I'm used to seeing out there in terms of attitudes. It's like when people reach a certain age, they feel like, okay, I'm not supposed to act youthful anymore.
That's right.
I'm supposed to act old, whatever that means. And
so... And it's usually negative.
And it's negative. And then some people, if you're older and you do things that seem youthful in terms of activities, you know, what do they think they're doing? I mean, they're too old for that. No. I mean, you hear things like that.
That's right. That's right. And so we're saying that I have butterflies throughout this book. And the reason I do is that as we know, the butterfly is the last stage of life for the caterpillar. And it's gorgeous. And throughout the book, I have these wonderful examples of butterflies. Now, it's up to us. We choose. We can choose how we are going to age. And we can either be vibrant and colorful and exciting and be excited about learning and the various arts and exercise. Exercise has a place too. Or we can, you know, just as I said before, sit in the rocking chair and watch television and
just shrivel away.
That's right.
And that's what I don't want to do. And I think that most people would like to avoid that. But, you know, Sister Joan, you can't not ignore some things that happens when you get older, such as you lose your memory.
But you don't have to.
Okay, if you do this.
Learn.
Okay, Alzheimer's.
That's my book deals only peripherally with Alzheimer's because that's another whole big issue.
Okay.
But I do mention this, and I think it's terribly exciting and very important for all of our listeners to hear. David Snowden did some research that maybe some of your audience is aware of, where he asked sisters, the school sisters from Notre Dame, to contribute their brains to him, to science, so that when they died, he could examine their brains to see the manifestations or lack thereof of Alzheimer's. Well, this one sister was vibrant, and she tutored, and she continued to play the piano and had group discussions. When she died at 104, they examined her brain, and she showed the plaques and tangles of Alzheimer's in her brain, but no manifestations in her daily life.
So you can keep the Alzheimer's away.
That's right. It's a cushion. If you stay mentally stimulated, try to learn, do a variety of kinds of things, then those dendrites and spines in your brains are going to proliferate, and they will be a cushion for you later.
Well,
so that's why I say to even high school students,
yeah,
you know, you don't want to do your homework. I understand that, but keep plugging because you're going to give yourself a cushion for later when you're old.
And so the moral of the story is, and we're going to come back and talk more of this, but the moral of the story so far is use those dendrites.
That's right.
All right, this is Lincoln. We're live. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. WBQC Channel 38. Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this break. And welcome back to Lincoln Ware Live. I'm Lisa K. Crawford, attorney at law, guest host today, and we're talking about aging. And Sister Joan is with us, and also Dean Peiffer from Chatfield College. And Sister Joan has written a book called Cutting to the Root of Ageism. Cutting to the Root of Ageism. It's a wonderful book, and she's telling us all about how to stay young, and it's all about how you use that brain and how you work it, so to speak. So we talked about 3 gifts, and we're going to talk. We have a caller on. We'll talk to the caller. And if you want to join us, feel free to call us at 381-3838. We've talked about highly developed brains, how to stay active. I know older people who do crossword puzzles, who do Sudoku, and things like that. Does that help?
Absolutely.
With a highly developed brain? Okay.
Scrabble.
Scrabble's a good one. Things like that, going, like you said, going to concerts and the orchestra, all those things help. And so, and then the next part that we want to talk about is a desire to contact a higher being. You know, that's the whole spiritual side to this too, don't forget. But before we get to that, let us get to our call.
Sure.
Good morning. Is this Mary? Welcome to Lincoln Ware Live, Mary. How are you?
Thank you. I'm all right, and I'm so glad that you smile, and you have a pretty smile.
Thank you, Mary.
That's so nice of you.
Thank you very much.
You make my morning.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. I feel good about that.
Thank you.
What's your question?
I just want to say, well, I'm at that age you all were talking about, 70.
Okay.
I'll be 71 the 28th.
That's great.
But you don't get credit for nothing. People think you're 2 years old, you know. They don't think you know nothing. They don't think you've been in the world 70 years for something.
So it's almost like people start treating you like a child again when you get to a certain age.
And don't want you to say nothing, want you to bite your tongue about everything. And I'm just the opposite, you know.
I was getting ready to say, but I know you don't do that.
I don't, and that's why. Because I like to express myself. I always have. Why should I stop now?
Right.
Okay. Sister Joan, I mean, what do you think about what she's saying there?
Well, I understand totally. Mary, I'm 78, and I know, you know, that sometimes there is that attitude. But what your response is perfect. You don't let people just put you aside. Speak your piece.
Don't worry, I do.
I was getting ready to say, don't worry, because she is one of those ones that defy that.
I have a problem with a lot of other people my age. They want to do so much. And I guess it's me, though, because I don't want to do nothing no more.
Well,
you know?
Did you hear our conversation talking about the dendrites and how you have to keep that mind active and do things?
Yeah, but they have you on so much of medicine, they look like they want to keep you sedated, you know.
Oh,
you don't feel like doing anything.
Mary, you just raised a wonderful point, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to turn that into a question. What about the effects of medication, Sister Joan?
That's a very good question. Unfortunately, I understand what you're saying, Mary, and I think we have to battle against that. You might want to talk, pardon me, want to talk to your doctor about...
Oh, that's impossible.
Oh, okay. Well, let's try something else. Talk to your, okay.
But as a general rule.
Right. To talk to yourself about...
That's what I do.
Well, yeah, but also to convince yourself that you have to take the initiative, that set yourself some goals for a given day,
right.
that you're going to listen to some music, that you're going to do some reading about something that you really like, or go out with friends. Be active, but I think you have to do that on your own, and it sounds like you have the personality that can do that.
I think so.
Yeah, but I don't want to no more. I figure I should let the young ones do.
Well, I think how...
Look like I did my share, you know?
I think how Mary, because I know you're a regular caller on Lincoln Ware Live here, but I think what Mary does a lot is she likes to call and converse. She talks on the radio.
Right.
She expresses her point of view.
That's
you know what I
great.
mean? Even if people don't agree with her, she knows how to maintain her point, how she feels. And I think for some people, even an activity like that
That's right.
is a great thing.
That keeps me alert. You all take care. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right. We were, before our caller, we were talking about desire to contact a higher being, just getting to that. That's a spiritual side of this?
That's correct. And I think that's one of our gifts, too, as humans. If you think back, you know, primitive man was trying to do that, the whole idea of worshiping the sun, worshiping fire. That was their effort to try to get in contact with a higher being, and we have continued that through the ages. Excuse me. And I think that what happens is that enriches us, no matter what religious denomination we are with, that it does enrich us to keep in contact with a higher being.
I think that is for the spiritual component. I think it's important at any point in life, but when you get older, especially, you know, older people sometimes find themselves alone, and, you know, it's that one-on-one connection, that spiritual connection, right. You know, and I think that's important for all aspects and any age, actually, but that's good.
And the other thing is that as we age, because, as Mary said, you're not jumping in a car and going here and there as you used to, that the rhythm of life slows a bit. But that's good in the sense that we become more reflective, and that reflective prayer you know, we invite that within ourselves, and
exactly.
That's really good.
And you know, I don't know how this fits in, and we're going to go to, we have a call with Tanya, we're going to come right to you. But I think sometimes when people get older, too, they think that I'm getting closer to meeting my maker.
Right.
And it's like, even if you didn't have a spiritual life when you were younger,
That's
for
right.
some reason that tends to develop.
That's right.
When people get older. They start getting more reflective.
That's right.
And thinking about that. LaTanya, welcome to Lincoln Ware Live. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you.
No problem.
I'm glad you just made that point, because I was going to speak on that.
Okay.
And also, I don't know if you mentioned it, because I've been kind of channel surfing, but I think food also plays a part in the brain development, and also keeping yourself young and things like that.
That's true.
What you eat, as a matter of fact.
Right.
Very good point.
Yeah, I also, as far as the spiritual side, the last point you made, Mrs. Crawford, I think that we do as human beings just automatically have a certain stage in our life that we go to when it comes to having a spirituality, because as you mentioned, when we were younger, though our parents may take us to church or have us read and study the Bible, when we're younger, we're not really into that as much.
Because you think you're going to live forever, and you know, you feel invincible, and then when you get older, you start thinking about those things a little bit more, because we know the reality of life, don't we?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you for your points this morning.
And one more question. Can you leave your number so I can call you, please?
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, I can be reached at area code 513-651-4222. Lisa K. Crawford, attorney at law. Just thought, thank you, LaTonya. All right. Well, back to what we were talking about. So we got the spiritual aspect. That's another one of those gifts you got to exercise. And then there's something called staying true to your own uniqueness.
Right. May I just add something with regard to the nutrition that your last caller talked about? Blueberries are very good for your memory.
Love them.
Yeah, good for your memory. We can move now into the
okay,
next
that's
segment.
good. That's a good point. Is any other quick foods you can think of that's real good?
Yes,
what?
Pink fruits, watermelon, pink grapefruit, and tomato paste. Not so much
tomato
fresh,
paste?
Yeah, not so much fresh tomatoes, but tomato paste.
That's really good because tomatoes have this one thing, and I can't think of it, but it's lycopene, isn't it?
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
Great. You know,
that's also in the pink grapefruit and in watermelon.
It is?
Yes.
Lycopene, remember that word, lycopene. Okay, now, staying true to your own uniqueness, you had the pleasure, Sister Joan, of interviewing someone I love, and that's Maya Angelou.
Right.
Oh, my goodness.
That was exciting. And the section of the book where that comes is that there's a very famous writer who, Florida Scott Maxwell, who said that each one of us, of course, are unique, and that it's up to us to develop and nurture our own uniqueness, and that's our gift to the world, our sacred gift. Now, what it means is no one of us are the same. Your relatives aren't like you. There's no one that is like you. You're unique. Nobody like you.
Right.
Absolutely. And so we all need to develop those gifts. We probably know how we're different from someone else.
Right.
And so we need to develop those gifts and help other people with those gifts, whether it's a gift of music, whether it's a gift of teaching or whatever it is, or law, to develop those gifts to help the rest of the world.
Okay.
And so I interviewed 6 people to see how they were staying true to their own uniqueness, because I thought many of them would have difficulty doing that. And one I thought with Maya Angelou. So I did go to North Carolina to interview her, and I asked each person the same questions, and I gave them the questions ahead of time. And so I asked her about staying true to her own uniqueness, and she said that what was very important to her was when she was a young woman, her mother had a large house, and she had invited a teacher to come and to teach public speaking. And all the members of the class were white, and of course she was black, and she was very timid. And she said the teacher gave each one of them something to read, and the end of her reading was God Loves Me. And so she read it, and she said, God loves me. And the teacher said, no, read it again. And she read it again, and she said, God loves me. No, read it again. So she said, God loves me.
Emphasis.
And she said, all of a sudden, it was like a light went on in my head. And I said, the God who made the stars in the sky and the huge roaring waves of the ocean and those little bitty fuzzy things on the ground, that God loves me out of my way.
That sounds like my classic Maya Angelou.
Yeah, right.
And that's beautiful, because that's what develops confidence to say, as long as I'm on this earth, I have some usefulness.
That's right.
And I have purpose.
That's right.
Whether it's to help others, and you can help others in your older age as well, obviously.
Yes.
So I think that is so beautiful. Now, you have some photos with you there?
Yes, I do.
If we could try to get those up here, I think Dean Peiffer, if you can help us move those up here, we'll try to get some of these in front of the camera. This one is a picture, and I don't know if we can see that, but this is my Angelou, right?
I can't
Picture.
see.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
there we go.
Okay, yes.
My
Yeah.
Angelou. So just turning that there, and that was beautiful. So what do you want to say about this? Okay, there we go. What do you want to say about this photo
Well,
there?
it was just, I think that photo really captures her personality and her zest for life.
All right.
And she said that remembering that whole idea about God loves me is what gave her the energy to go and do all the things that she's been
And
doing.
she's still doing it, isn't
Yes.
she? Do you know how old she is, by the way?
I don't.
Okay, so that's one photo. Dean, if you can help us remove that one. And then we have another one here. And, okay, I'll turn it towards you.
Marion Diamond.
Marion
Yes.
Diamond, this is the person who inspired you with a lot of her research to write your book, right?
That's right.
Okay, so
The
that's
one about the rats in the laboratory.
the rats in the lab. Okay, and then we have one more. Well, actually, maybe a couple more here. This is, what's that there? Okay.
That's one of the butterflies.
I'm turning it back toward the camera now, if we can see that. And the butterflies illustrate, obviously, you know, that part of our life where we might reach the end, but it doesn't have to be.
It can be colorful,
Yeah.
just as this is the last stage of the
Right.
caterpillar, and the butterflies are beautiful. So our last stage of life can, in fact, be vibrant if
And
we...
beautiful. Let me get that
Yes.
last one over there. And we just got one more there, and I want to show that because these are beautiful because they illustrate certain things. You see that one now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to turn it toward the camera. Is that good? Oh, here we go.
Now, our friend Steve Bayer took these photos of
Beautiful flower.
butterflies.
That's
Yeah.
okay, that's the butterfly on the flower.
Yes.
Okay, so another
Yeah.
picture of the beautiful butterfly. So our lives should be like that.
That's right.
Is the point that you're making. And if people want to get your book, which is, again, Cutting to the Roots of Ageism, how can they get that?
Hey, Bob, do you want to read that telephone number?
Sure. We have a number that can be called. It's area code 513-362-2733.
362-2723.
And also it can be purchased at Intervision's bookstore on Beachmont Avenue and at St. Francis Bookshop on Winton Road.
Very good. And back to you quickly, Dean Peiffer of Chatfield College. What type of courses does your college teach? Or what type of majors?
Liberal arts courses.
Liberal arts, okay.
And I would like to say that college is an excellent way to keep the mind stimulated. And we have many students in their 60s and their 70s. They make an enormous contribution in the classroom, but I think their participation is beneficial to them as well.
Now that's what I'm talking about, going to college at 70.
Yeah.
I love that idea. What are older people studying at 70?
Typically ethics, philosophy, religion, very popular. When I did the intro to philosophy, of course, I had a woman in the class who was 78 and had worked with the SCLC and Dr. King and brought in a picture of her seated with Dr. King. And what a valuable experience for the others in the class.
Exactly, to share that. So that's another thing. We can continue to go to college, just learn and stimulate that brain. That's the main thing. And then there's one other point that I wanted to make. I think sometimes we tend to get depressed, like when we start grade and we think, oops, I got to cover that up a little bit. We don't want to let the grade come through sometimes, or, what else happens? Might lose a tooth. You're sighted, correct?
I'm sorry?
You're sighted.
Yes.
And some people have, suffer from that, blindness, things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those things can make people depressed. Just getting the frailties that come with getting older. How do we fight that?
You can't give in to it. I mean, you have to work around it. Now, as I told you earlier, I have the use of just one eye, but I am determined that that's not going to stop me. And you accommodate with whatever frailty you have, and you plow forward.
That's it. It's as simple as that. You don't give up.
That's right.
I love it. You've been so inspirational. Thank you, Sister Joan. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you coming in. And Dean Peiffer of Chatfield College, thank you so much for coming in. Everything you've said today has been inspirational to me, and I think to all of our viewers out there. So thanks again. And one more time for the phone number if people want to reach you about that book, please.
Area code 513-362-2733.
2733. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break. I'd like to thank my guests once again for being here. This is Lincoln Ware Live. When we come back, we're talking with Noel Morgan about landlord tenant issues. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Lincoln Ware Live. I'm guest host attorney Lisa K. Crawford, and now we're going to talk about landlord-tenant issues. There are a plethora of issues when it comes to landlord-tenant, I'm telling you. And I think as we begin to talk, you guys are going to have so many questions. It's going to be unbelievable. So let me give you that number now. The phone number here is 651-3838, or you can dial 381-3838. And my guest is Noel M. Morgan. He is a senior attorney with the Legal Aid Society of Cincinnati. And welcome to the show, Noel.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here this morning. And I tell you, you hear about all kinds of issues when it comes to this area of law. And one of the things that I want to talk about, I heard of a case not too long ago, I'm going to say it like this, that where and if anybody has heard this news story, please call and back me up, because I've heard this, where a landlord went into a tenant's residence apartment unannounced in the late evening, and the tenant thought it was an intruder and shot the landlord. Now, I don't know if the man died, I just don't know, but I heard that story some time ago, and if you heard that, please call me, because I mentioned that to Noel, and he goes, you haven't quite heard that one, right?
Well, I've heard it.
You heard it too, okay.
I don't know the facts.
All right, I don't know if the guy died or...
I guess, let's just pretend that it happened.
Okay, let's pretend.
Without regard to what the actual facts of that situation were, it could happen.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about there are a plethora of issues, when you realize that Cincinnati has a home ownership rate of something like 39%.
That's considered low.
Very low.
Yeah.
That means the rest of those folks are tenants. Mm-hmm. And when you're a tenant, you're living in somebody else's property. Right. And you're paying for the right to be there. And so there are all kinds of issues that come up from that. And one of the things that does arise is, when does the landlord have the right to come into your apartment? And the first thing to understand is the landlord does have a right to, that's the landlord's property.
That's his property, but he has to give notice.
That's right.
And 24 hours at least.
Basically.
Okay.
Ohio law says the landlord has to give 24 hours notice unless there's an emergency situation. If water is leaking into the apartment down below and the landlord has reason to believe it's coming from your apartment, he's not going to be required to send you a letter and say, gee, I'd like to come up and check that leak.
Right, he can come on in for some emergency.
Right, but,
okay.
but otherwise the requirement is for 24 hours notice. The landlord has to give notice, and then the tenant has a responsibility not to refuse access that's been reasonably requested.
And that does make sense. We do have a call, and don't forget to dial 651-3838 to join us this morning. Queen, welcome to Lincoln Ware Live. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go right ahead.
Listen, I have a thing where it's a new owner that bought the building. Well, I heard this is not really bought yet, but they're running their building, and we have a landlord that after every single penny that the poor have, like threatening, if they don't circulate, threatening to call down there because they didn't take the food out of the pantry every 2 months and everything. And I had a thing where my back is hurt.
What is that, for extermination purposes?
Yes, extermination, but it's every 2 months. We asked him, how come you can't use the things that other people use? And the exterminator said, because he's too cheap.
So he makes the tenants really work to come in and provide services.
And charge you if you don't have it. He wouldn't take their rent. And I told him when he came in here, I said, you're taking from the poor, because it's like what John said goes, and you can't wait. And you know, he's one of those ones that, and then he goes, I'm gonna call your work.
I got you.
He's called so many times on me, they tired of it.
Yeah, I hear you, Queen.
But I can't get a hold to who owns the building. Every time he said, oh, well, we don't have to bother the owner with this. I'm still trying to find out how I can get, because even the phone call goes right back to him.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, let Mr. Morgan go ahead and try to answer that question, because...
And he don't give you 24 hours. When you put something at the door at 5 in the afternoon, and then you think you can come at noon the next day, you're wrong.
Yeah, that's not definitely not 24 hours. We can count, can't we? Thank you, Queen.
Thank you, and have a great one.
All right. What say you quickly to that, Mr. Morgan?
Say I quickly?
Yeah.
Well, first off, extermination is a problem. and whether it's for roaches, rats, bed bugs, the landlord's going to have some responsibility to do extermination, and the tenant is going to have a responsibility to cooperate with the extermination. And there is no black and white line you can draw to say at what point it's being unreasonable. First, you want to be thankful you have a landlord who wants to exterminate, because we have a problem very often with landlords who won't exterminate, and places are overrun with vermin.
Let me ask you quickly, though, about finding the owner. How can Queen get to the owner? Because she wants to talk to the owner.
No simple answer to that.
Maybe
the owners have managers to manage the property, and I guess if your phone calls don't get answered, you can send a letter.
County real estate office to look at the records?
You can go to the county auditor's office and find out who the owner is, but the owner may be a corporation.
Right.
And the owner has turned everything over to the manager.
Right.
But one of the things I would say is, while it may be unreasonable to say to take everything, all the food out of your kitchen every 2 months to exterminate, that sounds rather unusual. But we had a long drawn-out court case not long ago where ultimately a woman was evicted from metropolitan housing because she had too much stuff in her apartment and it was overrun with roaches. Now, she was not a clutter bug. Her apartment was very neat. She just had so much stuff in there.
The roaches had a lot of places to hide.
The roaches had places to hide. CMHA, the method they used to exterminate, they said that basically she had to take everything out of the drawers, everything out of the cabinets in order for them to do it. She had some disabilities that was difficult for her to do it. And ultimately, she wound up being evicted because of what they called housekeeping issues. That is, they couldn't control the roaches. Now you
helped her, Noel?
Well, we lost, but
wow.
we had an exterminator as an expert witness who said, there's a better way to exterminate.
Right.
Instead of spraying every places where the roaches are, you put down bait to bring the roaches out to the bait.
That'd be one
and
way.
Our expert said that was the preferred way to do it. Ultimately, the judge didn't buy it, and we lost the case.
Yeah, well, I have my own landlord-tenant cases that I thought were crazy, but we're going to take a quick break. But real quick, what had happened is that the landlord did exterminate, and the lady came in and saw dead bugs all over the place, and the judge said that it was uninhabitable. We'll be taking a quick break. We'll be right back.
I want your judge.
Welcome back to Lincoln Ware Live. I'm attorney Lisa K. Crawford, guest host this morning. We're talking with Noel Morgan, senior attorney for the Legal Aid Society of Cincinnati. He works in the area of landlord tenant law, and that's what we're discussing. And you can join us when you dial 651-3838 or 381-3838. Real quick, we got calls lined up. We got a short amount of time. Real quick, the 3-day notice. When the landlord puts that on your door, do you have to move right away?
No. 3-day notice, what it says is, if you don't move in 3 days, I'm going to move to an eviction case. A landlord cannot lock you out, turn off your water, put you out of the apartment, do anything like that without first going through court.
Right, and when he files that complaint in court, you have 28 days to answer that. Right?
Well, not quite.
Not quite?
You've got 28 days to answer his complaint for money.
Yes.
But when he files that in court, you are going to be in court for a trial in about 17 days.
17 days.
Something like that.
So that moves a lot more quickly.
And then if you lose in court, you're going to have another 7 days to move.
Okay.
So from the time you get that 3-day notice, you've got somewhere in the range of a month before you have to be out.
Okay, that's kind of what I was dealing with. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Irma, go ahead and make your question quick, please.
Okay, I have a very quick question, and my question is, if you live in an apartment where it's a health hazard for you, and you have water coming from the kitchen sink from the laundry room, leaking from the floor, that was my situation.
Water? You said water's running. You called the landlord, right?
Yes, I did.
And did the landlord respond or not?
Oh, he came and looked, but I had to call the house on him. He even locked the department. Told him that he did something about it. He done nothing.
Okay, it doesn't sound like he responded to your satisfaction.
No,
You moved?
Yes, I didn't feel safe there. I'm handicapped. Water
okay.
On the floor. I had to move.
Well, there are, you know, landlords. What do you call those kind of landlords who are who don't do what they're supposed to do? Scumbags. I mean, I'm sorry, that's not slumlords. Yeah, I mean, he could have been one of those, Irma, frankly.
He was. Don't apartment complex no more.
There's a fair amount of them out there. Well, at least you moved, and I'm glad you got into a new place, Irma.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate your call. All right, Carol, we're moving quickly. Go right ahead with your question this morning.
Yes, just commenting on the case about the landlord coming into the house and the guy shooting him. The landlord did live.
He did make it, okay.
He did live. I remember reading about him getting out of the hospital, and I don't think the guy was charged.
I don't either. I think the police were stumped on what to do on that initially because actually the tenant was within his right, you know, to defend his property under the circumstances. Carol, thanks for backing me up because I know that story's been out there. I appreciate you this morning.
Have a good day.
Okay, thank you so much.
Let me say something just on that real quickly.
Okay.
Is you know, the landlord does have that right to come in. And I have clients very often and say, why does he want to keep getting in my, in fact, I had this argument with my daughter a couple of days ago. You know, he's just trying to get his nose into my business. He doesn't need to be in my apartment. Well, the landlord's got a legitimate, you know, it's his property. He's going to be concerned about how it's being taken care of. And especially a landlord who only got one rental property, one or two. Is not a professional landlord. He's concerned about what's happening on the property.
Right.
You're concerned because you want to know, you want him to know about all the problems that you've got. And so when the landlord says, you know, here's notice, I want to come in, don't get chip on your shoulder. And if it's inconvenient for you, the landlord has a key. He has a right to come in even if you're not there. Now,
with the proper notice. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And preferably you want to arrange it when you can be there. But don't assume that the landlord's just trying to take advantage of you because he wants to come in.
Right, and I understand that. And another issue that that's come up, bed bugs are a big problem, right?
Right.
So if you move into a place and you know you didn't have bed bugs before, and all of a sudden you see bed bugs, whose responsibility is that?
Well, if you move into the place and there are bed bugs there when you get there, there's no question that's the landlord's responsibility.
Okay.
More often, the bed bugs show up and there's a dispute over who got them there.
Right.
And the landlord's going to have an extermination responsibility.
Okay.
But you're going to, you have the potential for the landlord and the tenant blaming each other as to the bed bugs. Bed bugs have become almost epidemic. That's probably an exaggeration of a word. But I think the health department had a conference on bed bugs just a few days ago. The Metropolitan Housing, I was reading an article, they spent something like $700,000 to exterminate bed bugs in the past year. They get buildings that are infested with them. You can't see the things very easily. They're very hard to get rid of. Unlike roaches, they don't run when you turn on the light.
Right, right.
They're only going to come out at night. They can bite you once, and they can go another 6 months before they have to bite again.
They live off your blood for 6 months at a time?
According to what I've read.
It's really gross.
Who's responsible? The Cincinnati now has an ordinance that makes it a misdemeanor to harbor bed bugs.
Okay.
Well, who's harboring them?
That is so funny. Harboring bed bugs as if we really want them. Okay, that's really funny. All right, Claudette, make it quick because we've got less than 2 minutes.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to say I'm so many times hearing people speak on the tenant's behalf, but nobody is out there for the landlord. And I've been on both sides. And the main thing that your guest is saying is that the tenants need to realize that the landlord owns that property. I was a property owner, got into being a property owner because of the bad experience I had with landlords and wanted to be a good landlord. And the tenants just fought against me. I had a young lady, I had a 2-family building who actually changed the lock on my building. I had no way to get into the front door. I went to turn my key, and my key no longer worked on my front door to my 2-family building.
The nerve. Claudette, we are very short on time. I know you remedied that problem because that was your property. So, Noel Morgan, thank you. We are close to being out of time. What's your phone number if people want to reach you about legal aid work that you do?
Well, the legal aid phone number is 241-9400.
Okay.
And that's during office hours.
All right, 241-9400 for legal aid if you want to reach Noel Morgan about the services that they offer.
If you want to reach somebody.
Somebody. Maybe not Noel Morgan, because they have a lot of attorneys down there. Thank you again for being my guest. All right, I just want to say I really appreciated being here. Thank you, Lincoln Ware Live, for the opportunity. You can reach me, Attorney Lisa K. Crawford, at 513-651-4222, or go to lisakcrawford.com. We'll take a quick break, and then we're going to tell you what's coming up next on WBQC Channel 38. Welcome back again to WBQC 38, Lincoln Ware Live. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Attorney Lisa K. Crawford. I'd like to thank my guests again, Sister Joan and Attorney Noel Morgan. And don't forget, today at noon on It's 38, William Hurt and Cindy Crawford star in the movie The Simeon Line. And then the rebroadcast of this show is at 8 p.m. on WOTH Channel 35. And also tonight at 9 p.m. on WOTH Channel 25, you can watch Bridget Wilson and Peter Coyote in Sweet Evil. Sounds scary. WBQC.com, you can watch all the episodes online, WOTH-TV.com, and you can email Lincoln Ware here on the show as well. Again, thank you for the opportunity, and check out my radio show on WDBZ The Buzz, and that's on Saturdays from 3 to 4. And we appreciate you, WBQC appreciates you watching this station. And don't forget to email Lincoln Ware, and he has a show on the bus as well, Monday through Friday. Thank you so much for the opportunity. WBQC Channel 38.